Hello, I'm the Angry Spork, taking issue with Batman Ninja Turtles Adventures. It was one fight after another, whether it was footbots or fear gas, leading our heroes and heroines to the Joker. But, of all people, it was the Shredder that stopped the clown, and let the Turtles and Bats go along their merry way. Afterwards, Donatello made the discovery that it wasn't the Krang controlling the portals, but someone keen on mind control. Someone quite mad. We're all mad here. Well, not me. I'm the other kind of mad. No matter what that court-ordered psychiatrist says.
The cover of issue 5 has the groups, minus a couple members, reacting to what must have been the sudden appearance of the portal, with rogues from each of their galleries reaching through. Did they try dumping them all in a completely different dimension or something? And why are Robin and Mikey just chilling on a rooftop?
Mikey will probably get an earful from his brother's end master Splinter, but Grayson can kiss his college tuition goodbye!
The title/credits page sees Mad Hatter in front of a portal, and apparently they're both enormous and he's superpowered, because he's shooting lightning at a bunch of New York buildings.
Oh, looks like this does cross over into Ghostbusters, and someone was told to think of the form of their destroyer, and their minds drifted to Jervis Tetch somehow. Probably wasn't Ray Stantz this time.
We jump back about a month in the past, to Hatter finishing a dice-modeled machine that seems to act as a key for an elaborate device that activates a Krang portal. No time to revel in this accomplishment, though, as he hears a noise. He shuts off the device as Batman enters, and the dice key is destroyed as he drops it, either out of fear or to keep its purpose hidden. A week later, with the help of a controlled guard bringing supplies, Tetch exposits that he'll find the frequency to the looking glass again, but this time he'll have a distraction for the Bat. It's not long after that he's casually placing a beacon, like the one Donatello found previously, on Two-Face in Arkham's common room.
So we see the chip placed on his Arkham threads, but after he gets back, we see him in his custom suit. So, did he walk through the portal in his nuthouse jammies long enough to get a feel for this alternate New York and then decide to go back to Gotham where he just got a new set of clothes? I don't know, maybe I'm just overthinking a very mild costume discrepancy.
1 week later, with the help of his controlled guard bringing his clothes, a guard called Lewis, as in Carol, I'm sure, Hatter takes his leave as the guy on monitor duty is drugged to sleep. This brings us to the present, where Donatello is certain he's uncovered his plans. And I guess his arm got busted up last issue, since it's in a sling. It seemed fine to me when Joker and his hyenas were subdued, but whatever. The beacons Hatter placed on the other inmates fell off once they arrived in the Turtles' dimension. If appropriately designated, the portals could activate and create an electronic net to blanket the entire city and produce a frequency to control every mind in Manhattan. Batman calls Robin, wanting him and Mikey to head through the portals after Tetch. The others will follow when the final portal opens. The Turtle, apparently having gathered some refuse to make a makeshift bat costume, is eager to see the Batcave that was apparently mentioned off-panel, and the Boy Wonder just couldn't be happier, for there is no escaping the Michelangelo happy scream.
It might appear unusual how annoyed Robin is with Mikey, considering the Boy Wonder is often the wisecracking, light-hearted anchor that keeps the Dark Knight from getting too dark. Though one could theorize that as a young adult and more mature than he used to be, Grayson sees in the Turtle that childish, carefree to the point of recklessness kind of attitude he might have had himself in his early crime-fighting days. Though there isn't a whole lot to back that up, just a possibility that may be the result of, again, overthinking.
The next couple pages are an amazing parody of the opening sequence to the animated series, with Mikey in place of Batman and fortunately backed up by Robin when he goofs up. In the Turtles' lair, Donnie is trying to narrow down a point of intersection for the final portal, and it looks like they didn't feel comfortable leaving the clowns unattended in the van. After Babs meets Ice Cream Kitty, because this world didn't make little enough sense, the final target is revealed to be Times Square. Oh man, it's so obvious now.
Well, that is where a lot of final or otherwise eventful battles take place in stories involving New York, so I'm surprised Batman didn't figure it out the second they realized where they were. Not like being on an alternate Earth would make much of a difference.
After a fun homage to the original TMNT movie, Robin leads Mikey to the condemned Gotham Tea Room, the bank robbers they previously stopped having been former Hatter goons that gave up the location. He insists this is neither a game nor a cartoon.
Right, it's a comic. Based on two different cartoons that had their own video games made about them. So I guess this makes that joke only half meta.
His overall point being that Michelangelo needs to take this more seriously, and the Turtles' response, which I won't spoil, is wonderfully on point for his character. Hatter's array indicates Harley's transmitter is further away than he intended, which means he'll miss a few brains, but can't let it interrupt his plans. Robin and Bat Mikey confront him, and while the sight of a large anthropomorphic turtle is intriguing, he sicks a bunch of mind-controlled citizens upon them. While the two are distracted trying not to hurt them, Hatter activates his array, using the same dice-shaped key we saw him use earlier. The others are in Times Square when the portal opens, with added energy discharged and making contact with other beacons left behind when the other inmates arrived. It has its intended effect, bringing the majority of the island under his control, including our heroes, and this seems to freak Mikey out to the point he runs off, despite having been seemingly pinned by unwitting Gothamites like Robin. But he's not fleeing battle, rather creating enough tension with the elastic cords of his costume to bounce back and cannonball the array, and it is glorious. He doesn't stop there. The machine seems to function just enough that the party dude dons Jervis's signature hat and speaks into the microphone, telling everyone affected that they basically should be themselves, and that's it. Though there's an added irony that we see Shredder and his goons also coming out of the trance.
It's nice that he restored their free will and all, but you'd think that someone that's also the heart of his team would have added something like, be good to each other, don't murder, steal, slander, or cheat, or stop trying to kill my dad, Hamato Yoshi. Something like that. But he's also kind of absent-minded, so it's not entirely far-fetched.
An infuriated Hatter threatens Mikey with a plasma rifle, I guess, just as the others leap through a portal and Batman delivers a decisive punch. It's not long before goodbyes have to be said, platonic affection given, and Batgirl making a joke about how the color green looks on Robin. And I don't think she's talking about his costume. Also, weird how April's expression changes. She's all smiley, then when Batman's giving his farewells to them, including her, she looks pretty grumpy. Is it 'cause Donnie got all woozy from a peck on the cheek from Babs? Certainly possible, since the show kind of went back and forth on her feelings about him. Maybe she just got used to being the only redhead that made him weak in the shell. So the Turtles head home, and Batman says that most of the Arkham escapees still need rounding up. But, possibly because of his time with Michelangelo, Robin suggests taking a break from being serious, as the trio is seen enjoying a pizza high above Gotham.
And honestly, I can't think of a better image for the last page of the series. So, to sum up... Oh! Jeez, what the... Another page? Really? Because that seemed like a pretty definitive and really good roll credit scene. But, okay. Could have used a warning, though. Jeez.
On the last page, in a decrepit barn several miles outside Gotham, Scarecrow is anticipating an impending threat, and in turn, he'll have to be scarier and darker.
Dan Didio's business plan from 2011 somehow makes it into this comic. Yeah, I know he's fired. I stand by my joke.
In the final panel, we see he's sketching a new costume, one he'd wear during the new Batman Adventures era. I have to be more frightening than ever.
I also have to sound like Jeffrey Combs.
Issue 6's cover shows off the new Gotham Adventures designs of Batgirl, Batman, and now Tim Drake as Robin, looking battle-ready as Krang swarm around above them. Fortunately, the Turtles are joining them through a portal. And man, Donnie looks like he's having the time of his life. The credits page sees the brainy aliens within the confines of a bat emblem, though in color, not silhouette.
They wouldn't have had to have bunched up if Krang had listened to Krang and gotten a normal camera instead of one with an odd-shaped lens. But no, Krang had to have it Krang's way because Krang doesn't know what Krang is talking about.
We begin with Bruce at a film festival, with Tim less than enthused about joining him, apparently because of the preposterous premise of the hero fighting aliens in The Grey Ghost versus the Men from Planet X.
Obviously, they're aliens out for revenge after Duck Dodgers blew their planet up. What that has to do with the Grey Ghost, I don't know, but hey, I'll figure it out when CinemaSins covers this movie.
In their line of work, according to Bruce, he'll need to keep an open mind, which I didn't think he'd need to be told. This is a universe where Superman is known worldwide. Forget if this takes place before or after Tim convinces him to replace a missing Bruce as Batman for a while. The idea of aliens shouldn't be preposterous to this kid. Then again, maybe it's more his critique of an old movie rather than extraterrestrials themselves. Instantly bored and snarking, Tim fails to notice something that Bruce does, and they shield their neighboring viewers as a shot of pinkish energy strikes the screen.
One of the cast of My Little Pony has not taken the show's cancellation very well.
Bruce looks out over the ledge, seeing strange machines attacking the city as they pass through Krang portals. He and his ward make their way to the exit, to the automated arrival of the Batmobile, and I guess people will just be too busy running in fear to see them hop in. He contacts Batgirl, who's already on the scene battling Krang droids, saying they're 2 minutes out. She suggests one as the foot of a Krang mech's about to drop on her, and she's immediately saved on the next page by the Batmobile knocking it aside, and the dynamic duo jumping out, already geared up.
I know that just like the gutters, the turning of a page can leave some leeway in terms of the passage of time in a comic, and I can even forgive that they're already suited up, hidden beneath their clothes and all that, but they just said they were 2 minutes out and get there in apparently under 1 minute, and that's really pushing things. Unless you want to say the film festival was playing only a block away from Babs' location and Bruce just happened to be really bad at estimating his arrival or something, this is just a little off.
They're surrounded by Krang, who, of course, wait too long to open fire, as the Turtles arrive to aid in the smackdown.
Aim! Now fight! Clank, clank!
Donnie's running theory is that the then-defunct Krang became inspired back into their old habits when they discovered Mad Hatter's hack, tracking it back to Gotham. Thanks to Raphael downing a couple Krang that happened to have a portal generator, the brothers were able to follow. Robin is in total disbelief about all of this, Mikey probably not helping when he declares their franchise name. Maybe it's the stylized font that's throwing him off. Then, Mikey begins making light of the fear hallucination Raph and Leo suffered in issue 4, as Batman and the Leader in Blue agree on a plan without saying much of anything out loud.
One of the relatable things about the 2012 show was how the brothers acted like brothers. For all the times that they got on each other's nerves and goofed around, they stood up for one another. They stood by one another. And in the show, on a couple of non-consecutive occasions, Michelangelo actually lectured Leo and Raph on matters of the heart, how delicate someone's feelings can be. So him making light of a traumatic experience just seems uncharacteristically mean.
Also, he says, I guess you had to be there. He wasn't around for any of it in the first place. So seriously, what the expletive? Anyway, Scarecrow, in his more recognizable costume, suddenly finds himself among countless Krang in their native Dimension X, where he can't breathe, and runs back to the portal as they chase him. He awakens in Arkham and the unexpected visitation of Batman and Raphael. Figuring this means they have arrived as well, he explains that he encountered the brain-like creatures on an unexpected detour back to Gotham, meaning that what we just saw was as much a memory as a dream.
That sounds like the makings of a thesis for Dr. Crane. He runs in fear from an enraged Batman. He runs in fear from a mob of aliens in a realm without oxygen. Though he might also run in fear of the peer reviews.
The Doctor had the foresight to prepare for the kind of invasion happening now, and reveals that after some of his escapes from Arkham, he managed it so that the police have been filling their patrol blimps with fear gas.
I guess he means that the blimps have been flying in a mixture of fear gas and helium. Otherwise, it would imply that his hallucinogen has the same lighter than air qualities as helium, and that would just make his victim sound hilarious.
Spiders! My skin's falling off! Oh no, peanut butter stuck to the roof of my mouth!
You know, that kind of thing.
Just as Donatello finds out the older Robin has, in Batgirl's words, moved on, whatever romantic fantasies floating in his head are immediately crushed, like that crank spider tank when Nightwing arrives on the scene. This is probably kinder than if Donnie found out that Barbara was kinda with Bruce around this time. Speaking of, he radios in, relaying what he learned and adding that Crane's gas is specially formulated for Krang DNA, as one left its slime on his leg when it grabbed him. Humans should be fine, but it might affect mutants, a possibility he mentions seconds before using a code from Scarecrow to release the valves on the blimps. Be ready for anything.
You know, the turtles going crazy with fear, falling blimps, frightened blimp operators I forgot to call and warn about the venting of the gas, keeping them afloat. Oh, now I remember.
The gas is venting from the dirigibles, and we'll have to take Robin's word for it that it seems to be having an effect, because none of the panels on the page show the Krang's reaction to it. However, one craft isn't working, and happens to be over Gotham Square, Invasion Ground Zero. Even after a second warning of how it could affect him, Raph exits the Batplane and leaps toward the odd blimp out, slicing it open with his size. Fortunately, it's a short, I'm going to say 5-story drop into a water tower, which he almost immediately starts hallucinating as being infested with roaches, but repeats that it isn't real as he makes an exit. The other turtles begin using their makeshift breathing apparatuses as the Krang begin talking to each other about what's happening in the overly complicated and highly descriptive third-person manner from the TV series. There a reason they talk like a confused navigation system? Not one that would hold up under close scrutiny.
That strikes me as a bit of fun, self-detrimental humor. It was never really explained why these advanced creatures that had been mucking around Earth for eons could never really perfect their translators to talk like normal humans. Well, except for one. And maybe it was just too fun a gag to bother trying to rationalize it in some way.
The aliens begin seeing nightmare visions of their various enemies. Not just the turtles and the Gotham heroes, but various mutants, former allies like the Shredder, and perhaps most terrifying, Ice Cream Kitty! Though I'm pretty sure there are characters here that they never actually met, like Napoleon Bonafrog, Shinigami, who didn't even appear until I think the last or second to last season, and is that Mega Man? When did they take off Mega Man? Anyway, they begin hightailing it, and Batman checks on Raph, who's still tripping on the fear gas, but seems to have it mostly controlled, so long as no one gets too close. Another round of farewells as Donnie opens a portal home, and briefly flirts with Batgirl before being literally dragged away by Raph. He seems to see another portal with Shredder's silhouette, but shakes it off, claiming to be fine. The Hamato clan is back home, and Batman and his crew swing off into the night, so Robin can finally watch that old gray ghost movie.
I guess Bruce is going to somehow convince the other rich people to resume the film festival despite the carnage of an alien invasion. I mean, it'd be easier just to get the Blu-ray and watch it on his big screen at home, but since when does he do things the easy way? That was Batman Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Adventures, and I cannot recommend it highly enough.
As I said previously, the humor is fantastic from both Michelangelo and the Joker, totally on point for their respective iterations. I think it follows the crossover formula very well, heroes meeting as adversaries at first before uniting against a common threat. The art is great at capturing the style of both shows, and is just cartoony enough to get away with some appropriate exaggerations. Not to mention the expressions. When Mikey is pulled underwater, you see just how angry it makes Raph. He gives his brothers a hard time, but he's rarely angrier than when his family's in danger. At least to me, it doesn't seem to steep itself so far into either franchise's lore that you necessarily need to have watched both in their entirety.
Though, having said that, I would suggest watching the first couple of episodes from the beginning of the 2012 series, just to get a feel for these incarnations of these characters. While not required, I do feel it would enhance the reading experience.
If one was so inclined, they could try and find out when the events happened in relation to each show's chronology, and it wouldn't shock me if a YouTuber made such an attempt. Though, as much as I enjoyed it, I will admit it had a few misses. Not just Mikey's remarks about his brother's trauma feeling pretty debatable as something he'd do, but Batman seeming to be even more on point than usual in unusual circumstances, even if they did kind of hang a lampshade on it. Then a few hanging threads. They didn't really cover how the fear riot was quelled in New York, Batman having to carry 2 fear-gas turtles across Manhattan without detection. Joker and Harley's hyenas get mutated, but they're never shown reverting back to normal. There was an anti-mutagen used in the show, but the heroes parted ways before it could ever be applied to those particular creatures, and the beasts seem to have just been left behind with the Rokusaki.
Maybe Bud and Lou are running around the Turtles universe and Joker just got another pair of cackling beasts and told Harley that they were the same ones, just unmutated somehow. Might be more plausible than saying they went to a farm upstate. Although there was that season of Turtles that started out on the O'Neill farm.
April was mysteriously absent in the final issue, which I don't know if that's supposed to be a hint at how she didn't show up quite as much in the final season, though I can't really think of what else she would have added. Also, I am a little curious if Crane really would want to stop the invasion. He's not just about instilling fear, but studying it, so you'd think that part of him would want to actually analyze the unprepared citizens of an alien invasion, though one could argue the Krang present too chaotic an X-factor. Of course, given how satisfactorily issue 5 ended, nicely paced and on point, it made the 6th issue feel kind of unnecessary. I can kind of understand they may have wanted to include some of the new Batman Adventures era, with the change of costumes and Robins, but it felt pretty rushed. Maybe it could have been elaborated upon for a sequel crossover, but if I'm being honest, I much prefer the classic TAS looks of the characters.
Speaking of sequels, I got to wonder if maybe Raph's vision of Shredder at the end was meant to tease a follow-up. But it could have just as easily been a reference to a subplot in the tie-in series proper to the show, or the show itself, or just the last remnants of fear gas affecting his mind, but it felt too ominous and foreboding a moment to be the latter.
So we arrive at the inevitable question, do I think it's better than the main canon crossover that preceded it? I'd probably lean more towards yes. I'll give the first one credit for giving us a Bats vs. Shredder fight, even if I think it was more someone's idea of flash than substance. And while it wasn't a horrible read, it also had stakes that barely mattered in the end, like the turtles being in the wrong dimension, which allegedly was going to revert them to normal turtles, and the most we see is Leo getting a tummy ache or two. This series was infinitely more entertaining and enjoyable, didn't waste time reminding us Bruce's parents are dead, and actually showed their fights instead of repeatedly teasing them before jumping to a new scene.
Because lazy teases are just as good as giving people what you're teasing, right?
The writing was also cleverly subtle. Not just to Hatter's involvement, but also the references to other Bat or Turtle media, which don't rise to Family Guy levels of you have to have watched this movie or TV show because we have no joke here, but rather they complement the story and the humor. I don't want to spoil it, but if you pick this up, pay attention to Alfred as he explains what he prepared for Bruce's dinner. Seriously, the last panel's payoff is a thing of beauty, and there's even more like it throughout that just makes the read better. But now that we've had crossovers between primary comic canons and stylized cartoons, what other era-specific crossovers could we see from these franchises in the future? The Batman and the '03 Turtles? The Burton movies and the first Turtle flick? Their first appearances in general? Batman 66 meets the Turtles of the 80s? The Bat musical and coming out of their shells? Batman and Robin meets the next mutation? The possibilities are truly endless. And maybe a skosh horrifying.
So to reiterate, this is a fun story with a lot of humor, heart, and action, whose worst crime is maybe being an issue too long. But even then, I don't think you'll be bored. I'm the Angry Spork, and man, have I got issues.